The House of Representatives has just approved a $14 billion package to aid Israel. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is how massive $14.5 billion actually is. If you're an American and you make $50,000 a year, 290,000 of you would have to work for 1 year to pay off $14.5 billion. That's how massive that number is. 290,000 Americans making $50,000 a year. Let that number sink in. And let this sink in. In the last 18 days, America has accumulated $500 billion in debt. How long did it take us to accumulate the first $7 trillion? Well, according to debt.org, it took till 2004 to accumulate the first $7 trillion in debt. During the planned organized partial shutdown of the U.S. economy in the second quarter, according to James Bullard from the St. Louis Federal Reserve, the pandemic relief package that was signed by Trump was $6.2 trillion with one signature on one afternoon. Remember that ridiculous thing he signed? It had 5,600 or 5,800 pages in it. Most of that money went to the big pharma industrial complex. Very little of it went to Americans.
Now I'm going to sign this, and it's a great honor. $6.2 trillion. I've never signed anything with a T on it. I don't know if I can handle this one, Mitch. We can't chicken out at this point, can we? I don't think so, huh? All right, thank you all.
Over 2 centuries it took to accumulate the first $1 trillion. Up until 2004, it took to accumulate $7 trillion. And with one signature, Trump signed $6.2 trillion new dollars of debt into existence. In 8 years, Obama accumulated about $9 trillion. And in 4 years, Trump accumulated $8 trillion, not counting the $6.2 trillion economic package for the planned organized partial shutdown of the U.S. economy, full shutdown of the U.S. economy. And here's the national debt clock, just to show you. It's not really 33.6 trillion we're in debt. If you look under here at the unfunded liabilities, now we're up to $211 trillion in debt. If you count the unfunded liabilities of Social Security and Medicare, $211 trillion. So the question is, can we afford a $14.5 billion military aid package to Israel? And a lot of people are saying, no, Brian, this isn't stolen money from the American people. This is a reallocation of money that's already been budgeted in the 2022 budget. So they're really taking this $14.5 billion from the budget. It's still stolen money. It's still money that we can't afford. That's all beside the point. But I wanted to show you how reckless and how evil these representatives of the American people are. And by the way, if they're giving $14.5 billion to Israel and not helping the poor man on the streets of America rebuild houses, create new housing, or doing all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that we should do that, because it's still theft. And theft for any reason is wrong. It's immoral. But, the least they could do with the $14.5 billion, instead of giving it to Israel or shoveling it over to Ukraine, is help American people out of their poverty-stricken situation. It'd be way better for America. It would stimulate the economy. But right now, it looks like they're just headlong, intentionally trying to crash the dollar. It says the House approved a nearly $14.5 billion military aid package that it's going to take Americans, 290,000 Americans, making $50,000 a year to cover for that debt. A muscular U.S. response to the war with Hamas, but also a partisan approach by new Speaker Mike Johnson that poses a direct challenge to Democrats and President Joe Biden. Guess what the challenge is? It's like Biden and the Democrats are like, we want to give aid to Israel, but we don't want to do it at the expense of cutting the budget. Cutting into things that we've already allocated for, say, the IRS. And we're getting to that in a second. It becomes so ridiculous, this article right here. By the way, this is an AP article. In a departure from norms, Johnson's package required that the emergency aid be offset with cuts in budget government spending elsewhere. I mean, that's logical. Of Of course, that's logical. It's better than going, hey, roll the presses and let's create a fresh new $14.5 billion in debt. It's more logical to say, hey, why don't we go into the over-bloated government, and why don't we take some of the money that we've already allocated? That tack established a new House GOP conservative leadership, but it also turned what would typically be a bipartisan vote into one dividing Democrats and Republicans. Wait till you see what the division is. Biden has said that he would veto the bill, which was approved 226 to 196, with 12 Democrats joining most Republicans on a largely party line vote. This guy said the Republican package would provide Israel with the assistance needed to defend itself, free hostages held by Hamas, and eradicate the militant Palestinian groups, accomplishing, quote, all of this while we also work to ensure responsible spending and reduce the size of the federal government. I think that's a smokescreen. It sounds valiant, it sounds good, it sounds logical and right, but I think it's a smokescreen. There's no representative in government trying to shrink the federal government. None. Not at all. As a matter of fact, the exact opposite is true. Democrats said that approach would only help delay help for Israel. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has warned that the stunningly unserious bill has no chance in the Senate. So it's passed the House, and everybody in the Senate, are saying, yeah, we're voting against it. It's not even going to pass. And the reason it's not going to pass is because we want a standalone appropriation for Israel. We want to just give them 14.6 or 14.5 billion new dollars. We don't want to take from the coffers of the federal government. We want to create new debt for the American people. A package that we can't afford, by the way. The first substantial legislative effort in Congress to support Israel in the war falls far short of Biden's request for nearly $106 billion that would also back Ukraine as it fights Russia, along with U.S. efforts to counter China and address security at the border with Mexico. Johnson has said that he will turn next to aid Ukraine along with U.S. border security, preferring to address Biden's request separately, and they should all be separate. It's like if there's going to be a bill that's going to be passed into a law that everybody's going to agree on, it shouldn't be this thick and they give you no time to read it. It should be 1, 2, 3 pages max. Here's what we want to do. Here's exactly where it's going to go to. Here's exactly how much money we want. But they hide in the cloak of complexity and legalese and all this terminology, and you have to wait through 5,800 pages to find out exactly what's going on and how much is being spent and where it's supposed to go, and it's all just packed with lies. The White House's veto warning said Johnson's approach, quote, fails to meet the urgency of the moment and would set a dangerous precedent by requiring emergency funds to come from cuts elsewhere. Oh no, we don't want to do that. We want to continue on our course of wild spending. While the amount for Israel in the House bill is similar to what Biden sought, the White House said the Republican plan's failure to include humanitarian assistance for Gaza is a grave mistake as the crisis deepens. Biden on Wednesday called for a pause in the war to allow for relief efforts. The bill would break with the norm bipartisan approach to providing emergency national security assistance. It would break with the norm of just creating fresh amounts of debt. Oh, Americans, you'll pay for it. We'll just give to Ukraine and we'll give to Israel. Basically, what they're doing is they're giving to corporations. They're giving to the defense, the military industrial complex, and to the defense contractors. It was unclear before voting Thursday how many Democrats would join with the Republicans. The White House had been directly appealing to lawmakers, particularly calling Jewish Democrats, urging them to reject the bill. And the reason they want to reject the bill is because they want fresh money flowing to Israel. But the vote was difficult for some lawmakers, particularly Democrats who wanted to support Israel and may have trouble explaining the trade-off to constituents, the trade-off of if we want to support Israel, we got to make cuts somewhere else. We don't want to do that. We just want to give them real, new money, especially as the large AIPAC lobby, that's the Israeli-American lobby or American-Israeli lobby, and other groups encouraged passage. And all 2 Republicans opposed the bill. This representative, this Democrat from Illinois who voted against the package, said it was one of the hardest things I've had to do because I really wanted to give Israel some fresh money, but I just couldn't explain to my constituents that we got to make cuts from somewhere else. And where were they suggesting making the cuts from? Where does Biden object to making the cuts from? Where did the Democrats reject making the cuts from? From the IRS, from the domestic terror cell known as the IRS. Check this out. To pay for the bill, House Republicans have attached provisions that would cut billions from the IRS that Democrats approved last year and Biden signed into law as a way to go after tax cheats. And what they're talking about tax cheats is they're saying we want to go back after these large corporations. They're not going to go after the large corporations. They're going to go after you and they're going to go after me. That's who they got on their radar. They're not looking at Amazon. They're not looking at Apple. They're not looking at Tesla, definitely, because, most of them get federal monies. They're not looking at Walmart. They're looking at you. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says doing that would end up costing the federal government a net $12.5 billion because of lost revenue from tax collections. Hey, if you take money away from the IRS, we're not going to be able to economically terrorize Americans. You can't do that. We got to continue economically terrorizing Americans. That's the Uncle Sam way. Taken together, the cost of the aid package and revenue reductions adds up to more than $26 billion. So the Democrats are going, this $14.5 billion package? Well, it's going to end up costing us $26 billion because now we can't collect all that money from all these tax cheats. Republicans scoffed at that assessment, but the Independent Budget Office is historically seen as a trusted source. Backers said the package would provide support for Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system, procurement of advanced weaponry, and other military needs. What is that? That's bolstering the military-industrial complex. You're just funneling money from the IRS, our enemies at the IRS, to our enemies at the military-industrial complex and the defense contractors. That's all you're doing. You're reallocating stolen goods. Stolen loot, stolen from 290,000 in the $14.5 billion case, stolen from 290,000 Americans making $50,000 a year. I just wanted to do this video to tell you whether the money is freshly minted on the printing presses of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve, or whether it's reallocated from a budget that's already been slated for the IRS. It is still stolen money. And we still can't afford it. The U.S. national debt clock rose how much? How many millions? How many tens of millions did it rise just during this broadcast right here? It's ridiculous. It's worthy of ridicule. Leave your thoughts for the world and the global thought police in the comment section below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. Don't forget to subscribe to my email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. If you want to support the channel further, grab a hard-hitting conversation starting a shirt from the store, or become a subscriber to my YouTube channel at Here's the Deal. Here's the Deal is my police accountability channel where we expose the tyrants who are trying to take away our rights while they economically terrorize us. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next live stream.